let me just put it to you this way. If you have 40% of your money in Bitcoin-ish like products and Bitcoin goes up 150%, you do the math. Let's say everything else on the portfolio is flat. I've had 2 spectacular years without getting into the granularity of the performance. And if you just stayed with us, you did incredibly well. And I think our best years are ahead of us. And so I think that the big message to people is sometimes not overreacting and sometimes just doing nothing. It's very, very hard on Wall Street to do nothing. You know, you're getting a management fee and you have an impulse and you get paid to do something.
Yeah.
But sometimes doing nothing is the best thing to do.
You know, like sometimes some of the best performers are the folks who forgot their passwords to their investment accounts, period, because they just don't mess with it. Yeah.
There was a great article about that with Charles. I think the Charles Schwab accounts, the dead people. The dead people, yeah.
The
dead people did better than the living people.
Because people are trading all the time, yeah.
But I had this thing, and I made a mistake on a podcast. So if you're okay with this, I'd like to correct it on this podcast.
Yeah, you can correct, yeah.
I had an account. It was for my son, AJ, who you met at the book party. He was born on the 23rd of September in 1992. You know, blah, blah. And I say this to people, and I say this to young people, just have integrity. If you have integrity, there'll always be opportunity, and there'll always be people that want to build relationships with you.
Okay, so just like, not to like revisit like ancient history or anything, but
no, but like I'm happy to talk about anything you
want.
want.
The White House thing, like when he got fired, do you think that was because like political press is just totally different from like business press, like where you might be able to like
you mean because I had
some shit with some people and not realizing,
yeah. I mean, it was just a vicious guy, you know, and I don't like talking about him because he's sort of dead to me, but you know, you could read about that guy if you wanted to. He's had his comeuppance, you know, there's just a vicious guy. You know, when you're that vicious, and that family was a Long Island family that my family knew for several decades, you know, fellow Italian-American on Wall Street. On Long Island, I mean, when he went after me like that, he knew it was an off-the-record conversation. And I knew it was an off-the-record conversation. He wanted to go after me. I said, okay, listen, I'll never utter your name again. And by the way,
I see
we will
that view.
So I have Buffett's view of the market long term. You know, I understand that Mr. Buffett is selling stocks now. He's built a cash war chest of $350 billion. If we have a 20 or 30% correction in the market, people will look back at that and say, okay, well, Buffett saw something. He didn't like where asset prices were. He didn't like where the market was priced relative to GDP, relative to forward earnings, relative to book. And so he started shedding some of his assets. He's 93 or 94. He's a very, very smart, brilliant investor. I do like to follow him. So there could be some air pockets ahead for the market. I'm not saying that there isn't, but I have his longer term view of the market, meaning I look at the market right now and it could be expensive on all those metrics, but there's something happening that is true. I put the book into an AI software. It spotted grammatical errors. It spotted spell check errors. I made revisions to the manuscript. And then I hit another button. I said, so you've read the book, Mr. AI. What would you title the book? Could you give me 12 titles? I picked title 7 from Wall Street to the White House and back. And so ChatGPT, effectively, a version of it, titled that book. And so just think about the productivity gains, right? I didn't have to have 2 or 3 proofreaders looking over the book, and human beings, fortunately being who we are, we make mistakes. But this thing revised the book, and it did it in, I don't know, less than 5 minutes. My point is the world is transforming. When somebody tells you, Julia, that this time is different, you run for the woods. You always run for the woods. I'm not saying this time is different. It's similar. There was an S curve when automobiles came in. There was an S curve when the telephones came in. There was an S curve when commercial aviation came in. There was likely didn't go away to 2022. So all of a sudden our assets dropped. They went from 9 billion to like 4.5 billion. People said, okay, he must be going out of business. And that was one of the financial obituary articles. But then we got hit really hard during COVID. We had a lot of structured credit in our book, and I had the worst year of my life in the month of 2022. Again, financially worst year. I'm talking about health-related things like that. So we went down about 25% during COVID. Terrible situation. We're locked in our houses, can't go to the office. Office is closed. We're in a global pandemic. We're trying to operate off of Zoom. All the people are operating off of Zoom. We went down 25%. The Fed cut rates. We rallied back. I mean, I think we closed the year down 7%. It was a really bad year for us, and we lost assets. And unfortunately, a lot of my assets were. We buy Bitcoin all the time. Okay. We're in sailors.
Were y'all buying when it was like beaten down?
Yes. So to the extent that we could, as if we got incremental capital, or I transferred a lot of money into our funds away from other things that I had. I don't have a personal account, but I had a trust, and I asked for permission to move some of that into Bitcoin and some of that into the funds and into the space. And so, and then as we raise capital, we're always raising a little bit of capital. We put it into Bitcoin. As we were withdrawing or redeeming from other hedge fund managers, we put more into digital assets, more into Brevin Howard Digital, more into multi-coin and assets like that, which have powered up our performance. But not perfect. We never caught the bottom. We've never sold the top. But, we are, I think, in the best position that we've been in the last 10-year own base. One of the funniest things that I saw during the campaign silly season was Elizabeth Warren trying to debate John Deaton. I don't know if you know who John is, but he was a pro-Bitcoin attorney. He ran for the Senate unsuccessfully against Elizabeth Warren, and she couldn't explain during the debate why she was against it. Now, we know why she was against it. She was tight with Sam's parents. She was helping Sam. So was Gensler. Sam blew up and embarrassed the two of them, so they went after the industry super hard. Don't go by me. Scott Bessent, the incoming Treasury Secretary, said that on Fox Business about 3 weeks ago. So we know what they did. And so the Trump administration, Donald Trump did a great job of picking people for Treasury last time. Stephen Mnuchin did a great job. Scott Bessent is as good, if not better, than Stephen. He will do as well, if not better.
Below 10. I always forget about it, and then I don't mess with it, and then I'm like, I don't trade it. So I just keep it to myself. Okay, so let me ask you this then. You wrote in the book, I wrote this section down because you're mentioning like Wall Street. You said, the only way for Bitcoin to truly achieve Satoshi's dream of being outside the financial system was for it to be able to exist as part of it. The integration of Bitcoin within the regulatory framework of Wall Street has been a good thing, maybe the best thing that could have happened to Bitcoin since it was invented. You said you suspect that Satoshi knew this. I kind of find that a bit difficult to buy into, but I want to hear your thinking there.
So I've read the white paper several times. I don't know who Satoshi is. I did meet Hal Finney. This was like a fluke. I wrote that in the book. And of course, for those listening in, Hal Finney was the person that received the first Bitcoin. That's Sob 121 issue. I really can't go too crazy on Bitcoin. Yes, we'll take reverse inquiry on Fidelity or BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF. If someone calls me and says, buy me $100,000, yes, we'll put it in custody with his CUSIP number. But until we can actually hold digital Bitcoin and its expression in a wallet, in our bank, and it's appropriately accounted for from a regulatory capital perspective in a way that we can make money off of it, I can't get close to Bitcoin. And I think that's coming.
Yeah.
And so just imagine these 6, 7, 8 major banks, once they can custody and hold Bitcoin, how important this asset will be. And I'll make one more point on this. Bitcoin's at right now, as you and I are speaking, at about $2 trillion roughly in terms of that happens to you in life. You see something, it's not clear, it's not obvious, you don't want to be embarrassed by it, and you don't do it. And then I saw it and I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And then guess what, Julia? I got embarrassed by it.
FTX right? And SBF.
I bought it at 17. It went to 69. And it went back to 15. But thank God, okay, I had, at least at this point in my career, the patience, the wisdom, the luck, whatever you want to call it, to hold it. And so I held it. And now we're sitting here at 93. I think it's going to go much higher, like 150 to 300 over the next 5 years. Can't pinpoint it, but I think it will. And I want to be a part of it. And I want my clients to be a part. I want my clients to not miss out on this. And I want them to be a part of it with us.
Mm-hmm. You didn't.
You can make massive improvements, and it'll help your psychological health. It'll help your happiness, and it'll help your outlook on life. Own your shit. Don't hide from your shit. That's number one. Number two, I would say that people that are in the investment business, if you're an investor, people that are in business for 3 to 4 decades, they've had at least 8 to 9 cataclysms. They've had 8 to 9 bear markets that they had to survive. And those bear markets steel you for staying in things and being patient. So if you're a young investor listening, seek out older investors that have been destroyed in the markets like me over the 9 cycles that I've gone through, because it'll help you. It'll give you perspective. Okay. And it'll teach you patience in the markets. And then the third thing I would say is that even though I'm not